Hello, welcome to Carissa Explains It All. I am Carissa, I explain it all, and this is my Diary of an Alchemist series where I am detailing my experience over the last 6 years through my spirituality, emotional healing, inner child, shadow work journey. And in this chapter, we are talking about when you start to grow and you start to experience new things, whether you're doing self-development, you're doing emotional healing, or you're learning about spirituality and expanding in that way. Whenever we learn something new, we tend to push away the old version of ourselves that wasn't that. Where it's like trying on new clothes and you're just like, I want to take off the old clothes because you're not going to wear like the old clothes and then put the new clothes on top of it. Like you want to take those off, put them aside, try on the new outfit. And then maybe, a couple months or a couple years later, once you've tried out the new outfit, you're looking back and you're like, kind of like those old clothes. I might bring those back into my wardrobe, into my style. And you start to learn how to incorporate the old version of yourself that did things the old way, which might have had some good things, with the new way. And you learn the goods and the bads of the new way too, right? So you're kind of like assimilating both sides of yourself, the older self and the new self. But while you're in that time period of moving away from the old self, and you might be rejecting it because that's a normal part of the process of learning new things, you're rejecting the old way of being, and you don't have enough perspective yet to see what does work and what is good about that. You're just trying on something completely new, right? Totally different outfit, different style. When you're in that gap period of distancing yourself from that, and then you get together with friends or family who are still like that, because obviously that's who you were hanging around because you were like that, there can be the pain of separation that you feel between you and them. And the way I experienced it in this journal entry that we're going to go over, this was January 26th of 2019. I was experiencing this pain of hanging out with some people I'd known for pretty much my whole life and just feeling really disappointed after the interaction because I really wanted it. I was not even I really wanted it to be something. I was just going to hang out with them. And I expected it to be like every other time before that, where it's wonderful. I feel good afterwards. I feel happy. My soul feels nourished. I'm grateful for them. I am appreciative of them. I'm appreciative of the day. I had a good day. And this was not that. This was not that at all. And that disappointment hurts and it sucks. And you feel like, what's going on? You're like questioning, like, what's happening? Why do I feel like this? I don't want to feel like this. But you're trying to grasp onto this new way of being. And so there can be a tendency, I have found, through the experience of me. So this might not be everyone's experience, but with my experience, as I was growing. So I know that I was accumulating new habits that were healthier and good for me. And like, let's specify, let's get concrete. I was learning the power of focus and focusing my thoughts. And often in society, a normal way to get connection with others is to complain about your life, to say, oh, I can't believe this happened, or I can't believe that. And you kind of like rag on it, you rail on it, you get on one of those, that train going that way, and the people around you get on that train too, and you go off on it. And like, that's fine, that's a way of connection. But the new way that I was learning was this like spiritual way, the way that Abraham Hicks teaches it, law of attraction, all that stuff. Focus your thoughts. Don't waste energy and time focusing on that which you don't want to have happen. You will just attract more of that. And all the enthusiasm and momentum you get from other people doing that, it's just, you go on the train in the opposite direction of what you want. So I was learning to embrace this new way of being, which is don't focus on those. Don't relate through our shared terrible experiences, but rather let's look at what's working well. Let's try to focus positively. And at that time, I didn't have the right balance to know, like, it's okay to think of negative things and to express yourself and to let it be shared and kind of vented and released. And that's healing in and of itself. Is just, don't dwell on that and don't try to find connection through that. Like, it's okay if you connect on that, but like, don't let it dominate the conversation. Don't only do that. Don't search for connection by doing that. Let it be in balance, right? But I didn't know how to do that at that time. So I was just like, just have to focus positively. And these people were focusing so negatively on their life. And I was like, I just felt so icky, right? It felt the separation of it. I was like, I'm not like that anymore. And I'll get into the journal entry in just a minute, but I want to say it's normal to feel like you are moving and growing apart from friends. But there's a way to think about it that I think is more empowering than the way that I was thinking of it back then. And the way that I was thinking of it back then was, I'm growing, I'm getting these positive, better, healthier, stronger habits, and they have old habits that are disempowering and not good and negative. Therefore, if I'm doing the healthier, better thing, aren't I better than them? And that's a terrible thing to admit, right? Like, ew, like I feel like you as the viewer are probably like, ew, I don't want to associate with her, like me, because like if I think that way, but I think we need to be honest with ourselves. We all do it. We've all felt that way, but we've all felt that like we're better than somebody else because we know how to do something better or healthier or like we all do it. Okay, so don't give me that. No, I'm just kidding. So that, while normal, is not helpful. And I think the better way to think about it, now that I'm 6 years after this experience in January 26th of 2019, 6 years later, I would say, let's look at it differently. Let's say I am going off to college on the West Coast, and I'm going to go study biology. And I have a friend that's going to go to college on the East Coast, maybe in New York City, and they're going to study religious studies. Two totally different disciplines, different sides of the United States, so different culture, different environment. New York City, maybe they're in the city. Maybe I'm in California, in LA, on the beaches, Southern California. So anyways, this friend is in New York City studying religious studies. I'm studying biology. We're in two different environments. We're learning two totally different disciplines. We're going to have two very different friend groups, peer groups that we're interacting with, ways that we're learning to perceive the world, very, very different from each other. Does that mean I'm better than them? Does that mean they're better than me? No, it's literally just different. You wouldn't even compare the two, right? You would just say, this is my experience, that is their experience. And so that's how I would advise my younger self 6 years ago to view the distancing, the feeling of distancing from people, friends, and family that I had once connected with because we all grew up together, we all connected because I was at where I was at, and now I'm growing, and now they're not necessarily, but that doesn't mean that I'm better and they're not. They're taking a different path in life. They may not be growing and learning the things that I'm learning, but they're doing different things. And does that make me any less than them because they're doing different things? Maybe, as I've talked in other videos, maybe they're pursuing career and getting ahead in that way. For me, I didn't pursue career for 6 years, and I have nothing to show for it. And so there's the pain of that. And maybe they didn't pursue personal growth and self-reflection for 6 years, and maybe they've grown their career, but now they're feeling the sting and the pain of not knowing themselves and not loving and trusting themselves. Different experiences in life, right? Neither is better than the other. They're just different. You can't possibly compare the two, even though it looks like you could compare the two. It's just, you can't compare the two. And so now when I've not in this little analogy I did was not real life, but in real life, I have now met with people that I hadn't seen for 5 or 6 years. And we had grown apart. I had moved away. So that's kind of a big part of growing apart. But they pursued their own thing. I pursued my own thing. And getting together with them, the mark of friendship, I think, even if we're not going to stay close and we're only going to touch base every 5 years or whatever and catch up, the mark of a friend is when I go and see these people that I haven't seen in years, there is a feeling, like a warm feeling in my chest of appreciation for them. Like, I see them, I'm talking to them, and I'm like, God, you're just such a good person. I'm just like, I'm so glad the world has you in it. I'm so glad that I got to be friends with you and that I got to spend the time that I did with you. And it's clear that our lives don't really mesh now. It's clear that our interests don't really mesh, but I'm really glad to have known you. And that's the feeling that I get. And that's how I know that that was a good friendship. And it's just that our lives have grown apart, you know? And so what I would advise that version of me 6 years ago would be to just trust that if they're a true friend, that, it's normal for friendships to grow apart, but try to maintain that level of respect for them as a human being because of who they are. And you may not have the perspective yet to be able to see the totality of them and how it doesn't mean anything if your guys are different or following different paths, but just know that if you cared for them, just respect them. Respect that they're on their own journey, they're on their own path, and respect that you're on your own path. And that might pull you guys apart, you might grow apart, but that's okay. And just let it be, just let it be what it is, and wait for yourself to get the perspective that comes with time and experience, but don't, as I had done before, judge them so harshly. Don't so readily judge them so harshly, because honestly, that just says more about me and where I'm at and my inability to see other people clearly if I'm judging so harshly, and my inability to see myself if I'm judging so harshly, because I want so badly to know that I'm better or smarter or healthier or more positive or whatever the heck ego response I was trying to cling on to feel good about myself. If it's putting someone else down, it's not the way to go. And that doesn't mean you have to sort that all out and figure it all out at that moment, but just drop it, just drop that subject, just let it be what it is. Feeling icky and disappointed after spending time with someone and being like, they're not growing, they're not learning, they're not getting any better in their life, they're not trying to be a better person, whatever, let their journey be their journey, take your own journey. And then, should you meet up with them a little while later, just, can you still appreciate them and respect them, even having taken a different path? And I think that you find that you can, so I'm on this kick where I'm trying to make shorter videos, because I tend to make 40 minutes to an hour long video. So right now it's about 12 minutes in, and so I'm going to read that journal entry and then call it a day, because I'm really trying to keep these shorter. So let's get in there. This is January 26th of 2019. I am covering up names. So I just hung out with these people that I've known for a very long time. We went to a restaurant, and then we all came back to my place. But after they left my place, I wrote, I felt very icky, disappointed, isolated, and rejected. I was really looking forward to hanging out with them, and I wanted to feel a loving and joyful experience. And I think when we get together with friends, that's what we're expecting, right? Even if we don't set the intention for it, we're expecting to have a good time. We're expecting to feel loved. We're expecting to feel happy afterwards. And when we don't, that's very disappointing. On the drive home from the restaurant, I did a calming opening meditation, and I felt that my throat was very tight. And I took that as a sign that now I'm not speaking my mind, I'm not speaking my truth, and that I'm holding back. So I was probably, from what I can remember, it was just a very negative focused conversation, because they're talking about the stuff that they're going through, and I'm learning this new way of being of don't focus on that, don't seek connection through your negative experiences. I'm really trying to understand and learn this. And so I felt like I was holding back. I couldn't say what I wanted to say, because what I wanted to say was not that stuff, but that's how they were connecting. And it was if I participate, then I'm doing the thing that I'm supposed to not be doing, which is talking negative. But if I withdraw myself from the conversation, I'm also not speaking my truth. So that felt very isolating, very lonely. I wrote, I just felt a growing sense of resistance, which made me sad. I wanted to connect so bad, but I just wasn't interested in anything that they were talking about. Later, after they had come back to my place, one of them left and the other person was there, and I tried to open up to them, kind of what I was going through, the positive stuff, the changes I was making, the new insights, the new ways of thinking and perceiving the world. And I felt polite interest, but severe distancing. This person opened up a little bit and talked a little bit, but then went to the bathroom, and when they came back, they said they had to leave. That was a clear disconnect, right? Okay, someone felt uncomfortable, they left, went to the bathroom, and then they left for good. Clearly, I don't need any training and healing and that stuff. You just know. You don't need to know anything to know that did not go well, right? So then I wrote, I felt like I was perceived as weird, unwanted, and I felt a big desire to distance myself from them. I did another video. I think I'm going to post it. I filmed it earlier today. I think I'm going to post it before I post this one. So if it's up, I will link it up there. I did a video on when you feel like you are the deep person, the one that goes deep and other people don't. And so you feel really misunderstood or not heard or not seen. you feel like people are disinterested in you, that they don't want to hear what you have to say, that they feel uncomfortable with what you have to say, that you're the weird one, like all those thoughts that we have. If you tend to be a more philosophical person, more abstract, deep, you don't like the small talk, you want to go deep, you're introspective, you're self introspective, you do shadow work, emotional healing, inner child work, all this stuff that my channel's about. If you tend to do that stuff, you've probably experienced that hurt, and that video is about that. And I was certainly going through that at the time. I felt that I was perceived as weird and unwanted. And I go over in that video how that's like a deep core wound, a hurt that we have experienced. And because of that, because we experienced it many, many times, we've built up the proof and evidence that I must be weird and like someone that people don't want to relate to. And like, that's very isolating to feel like that. Okay, so then I wrote, this morning I addressed the fact that I felt like I was going to be rejected. I realized I don't want to bring past trauma in, and I just want to feel happy and be with them. It was really hard to be present with them because it just wasn't interesting. And I feel bad about that. I feel bad about that, and I feel bad that they might have sensed that. That's interesting. I didn't remember that, but I don't want these feelings. I don't want to change my state. I realized that turning to things to just change my state is a really good flag that this is exactly something I need to discover what's going on. I wrote, I felt resistance from this person because I think it feels scary to address all that, and this person pushes me away because they don't want to deal with all that. Yeah, I feel like, sometimes when you are a very deep person and you like to go into deep things, like the video that I filmed about like feeling alone, when you feel like you're a deep person, you tend to think in the abstract, and you think in in terms of self introspection and shadow work and emotional healing and all this stuff, and like energy and vibration. You tend to, and spirituality, you have this different lens that's a lot deeper than just the surface level of the world, and you live there a lot of the time, and it feels good because you enjoy partaking in this perception of more than just one layer of reality, and you like the subtext, and you just like the texture of all these different energies and figuring it out and stuff. But when you do that all the time, you kind of know how to live in that uncertainty and ambiguity of leaving things open-ended and asking questions and receiving the answers days, months, or years later. It's okay to leave things open-ended and to not have to solidify into an identity and not have to understand everything before, you make the next move. Like when people don't play in that arena a lot, they want the stability of knowing what is and who they are and calling it what it is, like naming things as they are, and going into that world, that deep world that we tend to live in. Those of us who resonate with that, it's, they can dip their toes in it every once in a while if they're like in a good mood, if they're open to it, receptive to it. But like what I was doing in that situation, I was going through emotional healing. I needed someone else I wanted the validation, right? And so that's why I'm explaining it, because I'm wanting to connect on this stuff because I think it's interesting, but I'm also wanting the validation. And so I'm like inviting this person in, and it's like telling this person to like jump into the deep end without a life raft, without a boat, without knowing how to swim, and just be in there with me. And like to them, that's like terrifying because they're like, I don't know, like I don't do this for my own life. I don't really want to, and it's uncomfortable, maybe the stuff that I'm bringing up, and so I need to recognize that was okay for me back then. Like that was my valid, genuine perception of it. And also this person felt uncomfortable and they needed to leave that situation because they didn't know how to deal with it and it wasn't fun for them. And, and I kind of like, maybe, I don't know, because I don't really remember that conversation. I remember the day and I remember being in that situation. I don't remember the details of that conversation, but I'm sure I was a little bit emotional dumping because I didn't know how to deal with it on my own yet, right? So I'm like trying to get someone else to like meet me there, and this person's like, I don't want to, feel like kind of roped in, like stuck or trapped or uncomfortable or whatever this person was feeling, and that was totally valid, and it was totally okay for them to take care of themselves and to leave. And the situationship of that meant that I felt I felt a little rejected, a little isolated from that. And so it felt like we were experiencing two different versions of the same reality. I wrote, I want to connect with them, these people, so badly because I've known them for so long. I feel a longing desire to be understood by them because the split in consciousness that I had was around them, and I want to heal that. But when I look at them as people, like not as friends, they are not people I would choose to hang out with. They are so out of self-alignment and touch. It's a reminder of the very ignorance about emotional self that I come from. To them, I represent the journey they resist taking. Okay, I can't know that. That was a projection. I can't know that. I can't know what their journey is, right? So I can't, like, their journey is their journey, my journey is my journey. I can't know that. That was a big projection. And it's one that I needed to cling to because I was like, I'm trying on new clothes, and like, they represent the old clothes, and the old clothes to me was the journey not taken. But the old clothes might not mean that to them, that they're not taking that journey. And so, yeah, it just was what it was. And also, I wrote, they are so out of alignment and touch, and it's a reminder of the very ignorance about emotional self that I come from. That sounds like icky to like read that I had those thoughts and feelings out loud, because that's not acceptable ways to think, right? Like normally, like when you're in conversation with someone, if I said that I felt that way, like you might be like, ooh, you're kind of judgmental. I don't know if I want to like be around you. And totally fair. And also, emotions they come up because they tell us honestly where our energetic vibration is, how we are feeling in relation to what's going on. All they are the truth of us at that time. And so to push them away simply because, like, to push that away, that experience, and judge it, like, that's not a nice thing to think or to feel. No, it's not in relation to other people. And also, it's where I was. And of anywhere, to be honest, it's your journal of your thoughts and feelings. Because those thoughts and feelings are there, whether you acknowledge them or not. But if you don't acknowledge them, they'll keep coming up. And it'll just get bigger and bigger because you're not addressing it. So it's good to just be freaking honest about where you are. And, the whole point of the series, Diary of an Alchemist, is to open up about my honest inner world of thoughts and feelings, as uncomfortable or icky, or as much as it makes me sound like not a nice person. Like, that's not the point of this series. This point of this series is to be like, be honest with how you feel and deal with it objectively and truthfully. I know that sounds weird when we have subjective experiences, but like, deal with it for real. And it's okay. And it's okay that you feel those things. And there's no judgment on you for feeling things that aren't deemed nice, like it's just where you're at. And unless we honor that by saying that's just where I am, then we don't ever get to deal with it accurately, So I wrote, the sadness I feel is a sense of missed connection. Relationships I cannot rectify until they are ready to do so, or I am ready to do so, which, 6 years later now, I can see which ones I've like re-met with. And we haven't really grown closer, and that's okay. Again, different paths, right? In the meantime, without expectation of, they are friends, so we should connect, and my demand for level of intimacy is very high, so I can simply enjoy learning about them, just curiously get to know them, no expectations. And that's a pretty good way to approach relationships anyways, I think, is to just be open, be curious, and not have an expectation, or just be aware of any expectations that you have. Sometimes it's kind of hard to get rid of our expectations, but to just be open to what is and let what comes up come up, So I wrote, I want to use tarot cards, but I don't know what I want to ask. I asked myself what I wanted, and it was reassurance. Reassurance that my friends will come around someday, so we can connect at a level of intimacy. I can't know that will happen for certain, and there's no point worrying about it, so I will just continue to live my best life and just allow any opportunity for intimate connection to happen. So I asked the tarot cards, what does the universe have to say to me in regards to this feeling of sadness I have about not being able to be intimate with these friends? And intimate, like, obviously not in a sexual way, just literally just intimate. Teal Swan breaks it down, intimate, into me see, like just to be seen and felt and heard and understood, a closeness of just like, I can be my open, authentic self around this person and know that I will be accepted, and vice versa, right? And like a closeness of connection. I drew the Akashic field, so I must have been consulting an oracle deck at the time. I wrote, I took the reading as a sign to meditate and visit the Akashic fields. I listened to a song and went to my mind palace. In the Mind Palace, I took a drink with my husband and then bathed in the waterfall of one source consciousness, because I have a waterfall of one source consciousness in in my Mind Palace. I've got to do another video giving you a tour of my Mind Palace. It's quite fun and interesting. It felt soothing, welcoming, and relieving. Earlier, when I felt icky after they left, in reality, all I wanted to do was take a bath. I wanted to feel this relief, but that would have been only the physical relief level, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it would take me a couple years to realize, like, sometimes the healing that you need can be done on just a physical level instead of having to get really crazy deep into the emotional and mental, physical, or emotional and mental planes. Like, sometimes you can just take a bath. And that's good. Just because you're trying to embrace spirituality doesn't mean that you have to totally neglect the physical. In fact, I would say to fully embrace spirituality, you have to embrace the physical as well. It's the integration of both, and you become fully human and spiritual at the same time. So I ran towards second level of Mind Palace and raced to the back, all of which is now a grand balcony overlooking Italian hills, because my Mind Palace changed and developed as I changed and developed. I wrote that the starry sky was filled with the aurora borealis. It was beautiful and all-consuming, and quickly I felt myself being lifted into it. I was spinning out of control until I told myself to focus. Once I'd focused, I stopped spinning and I asked of it my same question: why do I feel this sadness? All that followed was a stream of consciousness. I created and perceived simultaneously. I spoke and listened at the same time. I was talking, and yet it was something other than me talking. I was sad because I perceived that disconnection as a loss, a detachment from my identity, as if I was losing a piece of myself that identified as one of these friends. But that is ego grounded in 3D reality. In reality, we are all extensions of consciousness, and they are having an experience of expansion on their own path, just as I am. They are perceiving me, and I am perceiving them, which is all part of our own unique expansion. Sadness is not needed because there is, in effect, no actual loss. But I put in parentheses, but I let my physical body mourn for the loss that it truly does perceive on a physical plane. It's very good, very good. And also, wow, I came to the same conclusion in the Akashic Fields that I have come to as a conclusion here six years later. You know, like the Akashic Records, source consciousness, tapping in through meditation, it's real. It really taps you into an understanding far advanced beyond, you know, where you might be at in real life and in your spiritual journey or your emotional healing or whatever. So cool. I wrote in parentheses, but I let my physical body mourn for the loss that it truly does perceive. And I think that's really legit. When you have a loss, whether it's you're grieving a lost loved one, or you've lost a job, or you've gone through a breakup, to get into the spirituality of it and just be like, I am perceiving them and they are perceiving me, and we're all experiencing expansion, and sadness is not needed because there is, in effect, no actual loss. That is true. Only on a spiritual level. Only that is called spiritual bypassing, if you do not let the physical body and the mental ego mind actually grieve the perceived loss, because it is loss on the physical plane. It is both, right? It is not loss because nothing is lost because we are all one. And it is loss because you lost it. You can't get that back here on the physical plane. And that loss is true and real, right? So you got to do both. You got to allow your physical body to mourn what it does perceive. Release the very valid emotion. I realized that although they are my 3D friends and we have a history of past shared experience, it does not mean that we have to stay together. My physical body again felt a loss of legacy of this like friend group. Those are just on the 3D plane though. And if being together without healing only perpetuates trauma and transmitted pain, that is not healthy, and it is not conducive to the path that I am on. I want to like read that again just to make sure, but I think that's actually I think that's legit. Being together without healing. So it was like, if I stay part of the group and either hide who I'm becoming or participate in what they're doing, then we're still only relating in an unhealthy way. And that's not the path that I am on. I think that's legit. I think that's valid. I wrote, and that is okay to go on a separate path that keeps me on a path of self-alignment. Keep expanding. That is my joy. Learning, growing. I wrote, I looked at my tree again. I have this spiritual tree that I talked about in my Meeting My Inner Child video. I think that was like chapter 2 of Diary of an Alchemist. I wrote, I looked at my tree again. It is now full, like broccoli. Sometimes I say the weirdest things in my journal, okay? But it is now full, like broccoli. And I hugged my soft, smooth tree, so grateful for the awareness of its full totality now, marveled at how I could perceive it only being half full before I was even aware that I was cutting off my emotional half. I was so grateful for my connection to the Akashic Records. My ability to visit and receive answers makes me so happy. I can't wait to keep expanding and learning. I thank the universe for this experience and was excited for the next one. I traveled down the roots of the tree into the bunker of my mind palace. It's dusty. Much of what I filled it with needs to be updated. Yeah, a reminder of the connection to the past, shared human history, but nothing more, because to identify would be to carry on and transmit the pain and trauma of our shared experience. And then I went up the elevator and left the mind palace. So grateful. That's it. The end. That's the end of one journal. Yay! And that's the end of that day of January 26th of 2019. So I think this video probably went on a little longer than I wanted to, but working on it. So anyways, I hope that you found that helpful. If you're going through your own feelings of ickiness and loss and disappointed and isolation and rejection and all that terrible, awful things, all those terrible, awful things that we feel sometimes when we feel like we're growing apart from people. But hopefully that gives some perspective that you can, carry with you. Things change and shift. How it is now is not how it will always be. How it might possibly be in the future is because you are going to go on a journey and change and shift and be capable of creating that future that's different than the now, if you're going through any kind of pain like that. Okay, so before I wrap this up, I like to touch on the next journal entry that I'll be going over. So the next journal entry is February 1st of 2019. We made it to February. It only took me 6 months to get through January. I am trying to be faster, more consistent about doing these videos. And I am, so I'm proud of myself for that. February 1st of 2019, I journaled about my fears of what was going to be the following day, February 2nd of 2019, because on February 2nd, 2019, I was going to meet with someone from my past, someone I was close to, and tell them about this journey that I'd been on, opening up to spirituality, of not being totally rational and logical about life like they were. And I was terrified of what they would think of me. I was terrified of rejection. I was terrified that they would take what I was saying as a rejection of them and their point of view. And not for no reason was I worrying about this stuff. It's because in the past, when stuff like this had come up, I was met with rejection. And so I was trying to work myself up and be more confident about having this conversation with this person and being like, it's going to be okay, because now I'm releasing all these fears and I'm probably just projecting because of past experiences. But I know what happened on February 2nd, and sadly, all those fears came true. So February 1st is going to be the lead up to February 2nd, where I actually have that experience. So this day, February 2nd, stands out in my mind so clearly. It's one of the harder days of my healing journey, and it was right at the beginning, and it felt like a rejection of everything that I used to be, and a total invalidation of everything I wanted to become, and that was really, really hard. So, but it's part of the journey. It's part of the journey. It needs to be expressed, right? Yeah. So that's the next couple chapters. They'll probably be a little hard. I'm gonna put it in my mind to give a little bit of a trigger warning. Not that anything. I don't think that anything triggering would necessarily come up for anyone, because it wasn't like that, but it could just be hard if you're going through your own thing and you're not in an emotional space to be able to hear and receive that part of my story, then that's okay. So, but yeah, that's it. I feel like I left that on a sour note. I want to give you a heads up of what's to come. But it's the stuff like that. It's those experiences, right, that really shift and mold us, and and now I am loud and proud about who I am and embracing all of this, and it's okay, and I have since reconciled with this person. It was a very rough journey, but it's good, it just because we go through difficult stuff doesn't mean that the difficult times last, and doesn't mean the end of the world, even though it can feel like that. I feel like I'm just digging myself into a hole, being like, just this next chapter is just going to be terrible, folks. No, it's not going to be that bad, but it's definitely not one of the happier. My last video was all about flow state, and that was a super fun, happy, uplifting kind of video. This next one's not going to be. but that's okay. It's all part of the journey, right? It's all part of the story. Yeah, so anyways, as always, thank you for watching. Make sure you're liked and subscribed and ring the bell for notifications so that when I do post, you are notified, and I will see you in the next chapter. Bye.